Alright guys, I got a question for you. Have you ever played a hotel management game? No? Well, have I got the game for you. You get to play as a nice, cuddly little bear. Not that kind. A bear who just wants to help the critters of the valley with their problems and make some money on the side by bringing the people back. You can kind of think of him as a cross between like Yogi the bear and Smokey the bear, but just like kind of dull down their intelligence, make them pretty naive. You got your main character, Hank, in Bear and Breakfast. But the real question with this video is, do I recommend that you give Bear and Breakfast a try, even if you haven't played a hotel management game? Well, let's talk about that and find out. Bear and Breakfast is an isometric view game released back in July. It's a game where you play as a bear that, somehow manages multiple rental properties in a place called the Valley. Not Silicon Valley or any valley like that. It's like a valley in Colorado or something. If I was to say where this game was based, it would be like Colorado. And what you do with those properties is you basically fix up the place, make some rooms for people to stay in, add in certain utility rooms once they're introduced through the mechanics, and then you invite people to stay and hope that you meet their expectations and get a 5-star review to get more customers and better customers. And if you want to be like those customers that have given my places a 5-star review in Bear and Breakfast, don't forget to destroy that like button and subscribe. It does really help out the channel, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, just like Hank, our main protagonist. I'm an idiot. One of the best things Bear and Breakfast has going for it is its art style. It has the vibrancy of Cult of the Lamb with the motion and depth of Don't Starve. What I mean by that is the overall color palette is very Cult of the Lamb-ish. Very bright, very colorful, but the motion of the characters and the 3D depth in the game when it comes to walking around the world feels like how Don't Starve would be if you weren't allowed to move the camera. It's one of my favorite art styles I've seen recently, but the same can't be said for some of the game's systems and mechanics. A major annoyance for me in games like this are waiting quests. After you've gone through the initial introduction quest of setting the place up, you then normally get tasked with a quest for getting a certain number of guests to stay at the place. And if you don't have the money or space to set up a lot of bedrooms to quickly finish the quest, then you have to wait for each guest to leave, and it just becomes a waiting game. It's not as annoying when you have multiple other quests to do, like I currently do, but when it's the quest that is blocking your progression within the game, it can become a bit of an annoyance. Kind of like I had at the third building, because I didn't know how many other things and how much other space I would need for the kitchen and dining room when they were introduced there. So I didn't make a lot of bedrooms. I made a few. I made like 3, and that wasn't enough for me to get the balance in there. Speaking of mechanic introductions, that's one of Bear and Breakfast's strongest elements. The pacing of mechanic introductions is well done within the game. Each time a new area opens up to you and it has a building that you can use as a rental property, you are introduced to a new mechanic after you have fixed up the building. First, it's the basics of how the properties work. Then it's bathrooms and special rooms. Then dining rooms and kitchen. And for as far as I've gotten, boilers to heat the building. The game paces those out enough that you don't get overwhelmed with new information, and it just keeps the game flowing. It keeps that kind of constant speed a good amount of the time, but there is something that slows the game down a good bit though, and that's the item/blueprint unlock progression in the game. It's not a major thing, but it's an annoyance if you focus on doing the quest for a specific property, like I had on A24, where I'd gotten to the point that I needed level 3 bathrooms and 2 people with the hygiene requirement to stay there. I didn't even have level 2 bathroom stuff at the time when I got that quest, so I had to progress the story along a good bit farther to try and get those items. There are just a lot of places where you can get hung up on quests, whether through the waiting quest like I mentioned before, or through blueprint unlock progression, or even if you're just doing like side quests or talking to the people and they go to a new area that you can't access the stuff there because you haven't done the previous one. It's just there are a few bottlenecks within the game. But even with those barriers, Bear and Breakfast is really good about not limiting you with like what you can do for each of the rooms. If you can make it fit in the room it's supposed to go into, then by all means do it. To get the comfort level up of the timber crossing shed, I shoved a crap ton of footrests in there, and I counted them. The game never told me of a limit except for what space I had allotted for that bedroom. Like, I'm thinking of just making a giant room on one of the floors in the captain's cabin or the ski resort so that I can get the comfort and decoration score up for, you know, particularly snooty guests. And I know the game won't limit me in terms of how big I can make the room or what I can put in there as long as I can afford it and craft everything that I need. The final thing I want to talk about is collecting crafting materials. A lot of the time, you have enough crafting materials to make stuff if you're diligent about collecting things from each place you go to. But that also takes time each day, time that could be used to progress the story or do more side quests and stuff like that. I'm not saying that going around collecting stuff is a bad thing, but it would be nice to have an option at places like the sawmill or the junkyard to automate that. Like, pay the critters that are there to collect it and hold it for you so you only have to come back over, pay them real quick, and get the materials instead of walking around the area looking for the materials, which can easily be hidden behind stuff that doesn't disappear for you to see. The only way you can tell it's there is by the button prompt popping up. It's just something that would be a quality of life improvement thing for later in the game as stuff gets more expensive to make, or if you need more of that stuff to go and build to put into your bedrooms. All in all, I think Bear and Breakfast is a good game. Yeah, there are some annoyances with it, but those are personal nitpicks that I have. The strength of the art style, humor, pacing, and freedom balance out those annoyances with the mechanics. And I do recommend that you play Bear and Breakfast for its humor, because it is kind of funny. Just the whole premise is kind of funny. And I would like to finish this video by saying that I have had such a fun time making these videos over this past year and seeing people enjoying or not enjoying when I make videos out of frustration. I hope that you guys will stick with me for the year to come as I explore more games and more challenges and more types of content. In the next video, I want to talk about what the new year is going to bring for this channel and for the other thing that I want to do. And also, I want to reflect on this past year. But for now, here's a playlist with my 10-hour impressions and my latest video.